Well, thank you all for being part of this. I think this is going to be an incredible panel, and that was before we knew the governor was going to speak right before this. But before I get started, I want to let you know a little bit about how this panel came about. So I've been attending the summit for years, and at the end of every summit, I actually talk with Dan Haley and say, you need to have more women on your panels. And every year he'd say, great. And last year he said, well, why don't you submit something if you keep asking me for this? So I did, and not only did I submit something, but I included 5 wonderful women that are in leadership positions to make sure that we could show great women do great things. So as you know, I am an elected official, but what the activists call me is I'm also a fracker. So what I'd like to do is bridge the conversation between the elected official and the oil and gas industry. So I'm going to introduce all of our panelists, and then I'm going to start the dialogue, and we're just going to have a great conversation up here. So first I'll introduce Commissioner Barbara Kirkmeyer. A 4th-generation Coloradan, Commissioner Kirkmeyer has spent the past 20 years working for her community and for Weld County. Kirkmeyer was first elected as a county commissioner for District 3 in 1993 and served 8 years in that role before leaving to manage a state-level department. She returned to county government in 2008 when she was elected again as commissioner for District 3. She is currently serving her 3rd term. Christy Melendez, mayor of Windsor. For the last 18 years, Ms. Melendez has worked in a variety of development, marketing, management, and sales roles while operating a full-service agency, Smart Marketing LLC. She is experienced and an expert in creating and executing marketing plans and in project management, where she regularly juggles dozens of projects at the same time. In the tenure of her company, she has formulated partnerships and relationships with dozens of local chambers of commerce, municipalities, elected officials, and hundreds of businesses in Colorado through effective collaboration and relationship building efforts. Her leadership, management, and motivational strategies enabled double-digit growth for her company for many years, and a career highlight was working with former Denver Mayor Wellington Webb on a series of projects from 2008 to 2010 that inspired her to act on her political dream. And she currently serves on the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization Council as chair, MPO Executive Committee, US 34 Coalition as chairperson, North I-25 Coalition, STAC representative, Lariat Loop Board president, Windsor Downtown Development Authority, and a whole list of more that I'm sure she'll share with us as we get through some of these questions. We also have Mesa County Commissioner Rose Puglisi. Rose graduated with honors from Villanova University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology and a minor in Japanese. She attended St. John's University School of Law and is admitted to practice law in Colorado, New York, and Florida. Rose is dedicated and is a dedicated member of the community who is committed to transparent, accessible government and is accountable to the people she serves. She is a strong fiscal conservative and believes that the role of a commissioner is to create a well-managed, business-friendly county that is a responsible steward to the taxpayer's dollar. We have Councilmember Jessica Sandgren. Jessica is a Colorado native who has lived in Thornton since 2003 with her husband and 2 daughters. She is a K-12 licensed science teacher and has been teaching since 2007. She has been awarded numerous science and STEM-related grants for her students and is passionate about educating kids. She's a community advocate who works to help combat opioid addiction and volunteers with the Colorado Consortium for Prescription Drug Abuse. She's also a certified first responder with Youth Mental Health First Aid. And I have the pleasure of serving with Jessica on the Thornton City Council. And last, but certainly not least, is Arapahoe County Commissioner Nancy Sharp. Nancy Sharp is serving her 9th year as an Arapahoe County Commissioner representing District 2. She was formerly on the City Council and was the mayor of the city of Greenwood Village. Nancy has served as chair of the Board of County Commissioners 4 times, and this year she serves as the finance chair. Nancy represents county citizens on a variety of boards and committees that work to bring jobs to the county, improve traffic congestion, ensure that those with developmental disabilities get the services they need, preserve and provide access to the Highline Canal, support responsible energy development, prevent damage from stormwater, and preserve water quality at the Cherry Creek Reservoir. So before I start asking questions, let's give these ladies a round of applause. So I'll start out with the first question for Commissioner Kirkmeyer.
Okay.
Let's talk about Senate Bill 181.
Wait, let me get my notes out.
Make sure they stick to your pants.
Yes, I stick them over here someplace.
So how do you view this new local control?
Well, apparently, I've been impeding oil and gas development in my county. And, well, me and Venezuela, right? And I've created a more bureaucratic process, caused more taxes for the oil and gas folks. So,
Yeah, it seems like
but I
it's a
feel
long
really
thing.
empowered. So, but seriously, you know, I just heard all that at noon, so I just thought I'd repeat it. But seriously, the local control, it was something that was in Senate Bill 181. I don't think that the folks that drafted Senate Bill 181, you know, through that robust stakeholder group that they had, that I was not a part of, I don't think they realized what they were doing with regard to local control and the authority that they were passing on to local governments. There were some very important, there's probably about 4 very important parts of 181 for local control that I think everyone should be aware of, and I think probably most of you are. But first of all, the first part in there is that the state, through what's called 1041 powers, because of a bill that was passed in 1974, 1041, created what's called 1041 powers. The state delegated, and it's a constitutional delegation of authority from the state to the local governments. On June 10th, we enacted 1041 regulations and 1041 powers, started the process. As Governor Polis said, we opted in. Even though he was surprised that we were going to do that, we did, and we opted in. So they gave us additional delegation of authority from all state agencies. It's not just from the COGCC, and it is with regard to land use. Then furthermore, they went on to say in Senate Bill 181 that local governments have the explicit authority to locate and site oil and gas operations and developments on the surface. So that would mean setbacks, even though I'm not sure they realize that, but it does mean setbacks, and it means that we get to site them and locate operations. It also went on further to say that the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission can no longer preempt local governments in our land use authority, because they've been doing that now for about the last 12 to 15 years, even though we've protested quite a bit in Weld County. But so they no longer get to preempt local government land use authority. And then lastly, there's this other little gem in there that says they cannot, the COGCC cannot alter, impair, or negate our land use authority. So we've taken that very seriously in Weld County. We have passed our 1041. We are a 1041 local control oil and gas county. Contrary to what was stated earlier, we don't believe that we are impeding local governments or impeding oil and gas development. We believe that we are trying to assist in providing stability and certainty for the industry. Stability and certainty that was not provided in 181. So we have been, thank you. Thanks. So we have been working, we've worked very pretty much hand in hand with our industry folks. They've been with us all the way through this. They understood. We've had several meetings with them. They've understood what we were doing. We meet on a regular basis with both Lynn Granger and Dan Haley of KOGA here to make sure that he knows and he's aware so he can get it out to his members what we are doing. So we think that's extremely important. We think there's a lot of movement that's going on. And in fact, just recently, and I think the governor mentioned this very briefly, that we have been able to commit to a memorandum of understanding with the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And what that does is it's with regard to our 1041 powers, because within 1041, there is a portion of that law that states that once a local government has taken on the 1041 powers, that if there should be any state permitting required, that the state agency has 60 days to approve, deny, or tell the applicant how they can basically get their application approved. So this morning, my board passed a memorandum of understanding with the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission that says that as of August 5th, which is when our rules and regulations came into place, that any permit that was filed with the state as of August 5th, so on August 5th or after, that the state will only take 60 days to process their permits, which we think is a really good thing because there are still about 4,900 permits pending in the state of Colorado, just in Weld County alone. So I understand it's not the 40,000 in Wyoming. I don't really care about those permits. I do care about the 4,900 that are pending in my county. And we'd like to get them through. So as of today, hopefully the state agency, the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, will process those permits in a timely manner and quit holding them up. So that's what we've been doing.
And that's great to hear. And Mayor
I think so
Melendez,
too.
as we're looking from the county side and we start looking at the municipality side, what's different for municipalities now that 181's in place?
So I think what's different from, I'm from a smaller municipality. We have about 30,000 folks in our community, and I've talked to many other communities in the neighboring jurisdictions, and I think we all share the same concern. Rulemaking is a very highly complicated and technical process, and we simply, at our local level, we don't have the tools or the people or the expertise to deal with these issues. Yet, on the other hand, we do have activists now that are coming before us and that are asking us to make some very quick decisions based upon health, safety, and welfare, which I always say that we did not need in Windsor Senate Bill 181 for us to enact upon that, because our very charter, once we're elected, means that we always act on the best health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. We didn't need another bill to tell us, to deem us to do that. But however, they are challenging us now to make decisions, to move ahead on things without even being able to go through the process, have enough information in place, and act upon real evidence or information of, is it even needed, some of the requests that they are imposing or would like to impose upon us at this time. So I think it's both a challenge because financially, we don't have we don't have the dollars there that we anticipated to be able to act upon this, and we simply don't have the staff or those kinds of resources to do a really good, thorough job. And I think there's other folks that are the experts in the industry, and they should be left. That should be left in their hands to do that.
Thank you. Commissioner Puglisi, I know we talked earlier about how Senate Bill 181 isn't just about drilling or fracking or production, but it's also about transportation and pipelines. Can you tell us a little bit about the Jordan Cove LNG export facility that you've been working on?
Absolutely. Thank you for this great opportunity. So Western Colorado's in a unique position. We have in the Piceance Basin enough gas to power the whole state of California for 50 years. And so we want the opportunity to export that gas, the natural gas, through the Jordan Cove project, which is currently going through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission process to get permitted. Once that's constructed, we already have pipelines in place. We will be able to export our natural gas resources through the Jordan Cove liquefied natural gas export facility to Japan. And we're also working on other Asian opportunities. And why that's important, especially through the Senate Bill 181 process, everybody's talking about the environment and how important it is that we think about health, welfare, and safety. I agreed with your comments. Like, we don't already do that as county commissioners and city councilmen, right? And I'm a mom of 2 little kids. I'm raising my family and my community, so of course we care about clean air and clean water. And so the message that I really like to bring through this Jordan Cove project is that we can have a healthy environment, and we can have good paying jobs, and we can all coexist in the same communities. And I think that message sometimes gets lost or taken over by some different groups, and I think that's a message that we need to continuously talk about. We can have it all, and we can have it all together. When I talk about this LNG export facility and our gas, so we're gonna export it to Japan and hopefully eventually China. Why China? Well, if you're an environmentalist like I am, you want clean air in China, who is currently burning dirty fuels into the environment. So if we truly care about the environment, then let's clean up China's air quality issues. And we can do that with Western Colorado natural gas today. So I think it's really important that we have that message and that people really understand that we can do it all and we can do it all together. I testified last week before the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and we talked a little bit about that, but also about local control, because Executive Director Robbins talked about he wanted to empower local governments. Well, empower me. You want to give me the tools to empower me? I will be empowered, and I will think about health, welfare, and safety, and good paying jobs, and make sure that we have both in my county and in our surrounding counties. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sandgren, we talk about this a lot in Thornton. We haven't had any oil and gas activity there in about 15 years, other than plugging and abandoning. But yet, for some reason, we become the focus of some activist activity because the surrounding county is actually having some, in Adams County, is having some drilling activity. So how do you think municipalities and counties can work better together to coordinate conversations and work with the industry to help improve that collaboration?
Thank you. So we do work with the county on a lot of issues. Transportation, we meet with them regularly. We have very open and direct conversations. Unfortunately, when it comes to oil and gas regulation, I don't think that those same conversations happen. We have people coming to our council meetings, and I was only elected in 2017, so there were several oil and gas things that happened prior to my election that are still carrying over today. So while we have no actual oil and gas activity directly in our city, we continue to get the activists that come in. So as a teacher, teaching middle school kids science, it was always a conversation of you have two extremes, and then somewhere in the middle is where the real conversation happens. So for me, coming in as a 2017 elected official, I would like to see less of those extreme groups coming in. And like the commissioner just said, we need to be empowered with information that's going to be helpful so that we can make decisions that are going to benefit our communities. Because as you said, we are all wanting clean air. We all want healthy communities. We're striving for that. Nobody's voting against that. So when we have these extreme groups coming in and speaking for us, it's not even close to what's really happening, and the actual middle person isn't getting their voice heard. So I think for whatever reason, we need to continue having our conversations and build our relationships with our county commissioners, but we need to really start having those real conversations about what they're doing and about what we're doing. We know staff is doing it, but we don't necessarily get that information.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sharp, we talk a little bit about Arapahoe County and how it's a swing county, so there's no clear delineation between politics. How do you think that works in your county for the energy conversation, and what kind of things are you doing to address that in the public?
Well, in 2013, we were, if not the first county, one of the first counties to develop a memorandum of understanding, and that was really important for a couple of reasons. First of all, we said we don't want to duplicate anything that the state already has in place. So we're just going to look at local issues. And so we put a couple of things in there, and how we did that is we engaged the oil and gas industry operators who were already in our county that we had good working relationships with. We reached out to citizens to get their input. And we also it was probably about a 2-year process to develop this MOU, brought people into our county to talk with our board about what legally we could do, what we couldn't do, the limitations of this MOU. And that set a great foundation for us to really learn, all of us, I think, to make some good decisions, not based on anecdotal information or an extreme group on either side. So we put that into place, and now we're going to move that MOU into our regulations and our land development code. And we're going to look at a couple of other things that have come up. We're still going to have people who are on both extremes, but I think I can say, just repeat or endorse what everybody else said here. We do care about all of the things that we're homeowners, we're family, we have families. We care about the same things that some people who are very opposed to oil and gas drilling in our county, that we care about the same things that they do. But we also care about having an industry. We're not interested in a moratorium. We did not have a moratorium when we went through almost this 2-year MOU process without a moratorium. We didn't feel like it was necessary. The reality is, at the time, Arapahoe County's had oil and gas drilling for more than 40 years. And, this was the Niobrara sort of heightened, maybe we're going to have a whole lot more drilling, and so we need to focus a little bit more on the things that are important to us and to our citizens. And that's what we did with the MOU. But at the time we did that, and people were just kind of coming out of the woodwork on this, we had 200 active wells. So this, compared to Weld County, I mean, we were like a drop in the bucket. And still, we may have, at this point in time, sort of doubled that. But we are interested in making sure that we have a good balance, that the industry can continue to operate in our county and operate in a way that moves them through the process quickly. We do not have any interest in holding up movement, and frustrated that it's sort of happening more at the state level. That's what we're hearing, and we think that it needs to move through the state process and get to the county. And we'll continue to look at things. A number of things have changed in the last 6 years, probably more the pad size getting larger brings up some different issues. We continue to look at technology that has improved for noise mitigation, odor, lighting, things like that. Looking to industry, I think there are some things that industry is doing to help in that process. And those are the kind of things that we'll look at. Some of our, not our permitting, but our noticing. We've made some changes there. So I think it's all been good. And I think in terms of being a split county now, I know we'll be able to address the issues that are important to all sides, reasonable sides of the people who are interested in oil and gas drilling.
Great, thank you. So in some of the panels yesterday, we were talking about unintended consequences of Senate Bill 181, and bans and moratoriums came up more than once. And I think we have 9 communities now that have a moratorium in place. We have a couple of communities considering bans. What are your thoughts on this? And I'm asking this to the general group, so just wave your hand if you want to help chime in on this. What is the response to that from the community, and how do we get oil and gas employees to help engage in that communication so that bans and moratoriums, which for a politician, honestly, is an easy way out to not have a conversation instead of solving the situation, how do we get that front and center so that we're not, as elected officials, we're not jumping the gun and putting in a moratorium just to make us feel like we're answering our constituents? Councilmember Sandgren.
So I think that's an interesting question. A lot of times, especially when we're campaigning, as most of us know, door-to-door conversations are where that actually happens. Most people are very intimidated by coming into a chamber and addressing that issue, especially if they know that there might be activists on either side in the room. So I think putting that ban in place just shuts down the entire conversation. Like you said, it makes it easy for one group, but it makes another group have no outlet to express what they might want to see. So in Thornton, we have a very diverse population of our north and south end of town. We have a lot of oil and gas workers we know in our city. We have a lot of anti-oil and gas people in our city, but we really only hear from one side. And so I think if we were to put that ban in place, we've eliminated more than half of our population of having a voice at the table.
Great, Commissioner Kirkmeyer.
Well, so first of all, in Weld County, we don't even bring up the M or the B word. I mean, it's just not even a reality. And I think folks need to kind of put it into perspective. I mean, if you want to talk about a political show, talk about a community that bans oil and gas or bans fracking, because they don't understand really what the development of oil and gas is about, but wants to ban fracking, and they haven't approved any oil and gas development, like Longmont. I mean, try and wrap your head around that. It's like, it's really easy to ban something or put a moratorium on something that you're not doing. So, I mean, we do that too. We kind of laugh at them too because, and when I was testifying on Senate Bill 181, I kept pointing out 22,000 active wells in Weld County, and you're listening to Boulder County with their 292 wells that are probably stripper wells because they haven't approved anything in the last 6 or 7 years. So, I mean, I think it needs to be put in perspective. I mean, even in the city and county of Broomfield, man, you would think that was ground zero for drilling. 91 active wells. As the last report I looked at the COGCC, that's nothing. And so I guess I'm not really sure what people are going after, but we don't even discuss moratoriums and bans. We talk about how do we ensure that the competing surface uses can work together. Because in our county, not only are we the #1 energy county, the #1 oil and gas producing county in the state, we're also the #1 agricultural producing county in the state. And we eat real beef, by the way. So just thought I'd point that out too. Can you tell I feel like I've been under attack for a while here? But we're also the #1 agricultural industry in the producing industry in the state as well. And if you look at where the Wattenberg field is, and even to some extent the Niobrara, but if you look at where the Wattenberg field sits, it sits right underneath our prime irrigated farmland. It also sits right underneath where our major population base is. I mean, so we make sure, as has been stated, land use is not new to us. Working through 1041 process, not new. It's been around since 1974. We work through those processes and ensure that all industries, all surface uses, that they don't compete with each other, that they are actually compatible with each other. So, I've said this many times, especially during Senate Bill 181, the oil and gas industry is extremely important in Weld County. It's extremely important in the state of Colorado. But the agricultural industry is extremely important to us as well. And the two industries that continue to pull this state out of recessions is agriculture and oil and gas. So maybe they should start paying attention and quit trying to drive them both out of the state of Colorado.
Mayor Melendez.
Well, I think there's two important things that you have to think about when folks are looking at or requesting moratoriums and or bans. And I think it starts at the top with leadership, which is why there's no more a better time in this state, in our communities, in our counties, that we really need to have very strong leadership. We need to have folks that are leading at the forefront of the issues and not just being followers at the behind, because we are being attacked. We do have things every day that we have to encounter, and you can't be afraid to face those challenges. And those challenges have to be made with those kinds of leaders that aren't afraid to be out there, to be at the forefront, and to be the catch-all to everything that's going to be coming your way. I mean, I have a split board right now that goes 3 to 3, and then I have a middle of the road person. So I never know exactly where we're going to go. And on the first time we had a conversation around oil and gas since 181 had passed, I didn't know where it was going to go, because there was talk that some folks were maybe going to bring up to the board that they wanted to see a moratorium, and even better yet, an outright ban. But I jumped into that conversation right away, and I led the conversation that I would never even entertain a motion around the table that had to do with a moratorium or a ban, and that changed that conversation from the very beginning. So I think, number one, we need very strong leaders in all the positions. We do have a lot of elections that are coming up, and so be very thoughtful of that process and make sure that we have the right folks in place that are leading the way on all of these things that are going to be challenging us in our towns and in our communities and in our counties. But secondly, I think it was what I heard in one of the conversations previous to this. It's about communication and being able to relay the story correctly. Because I've been involved in my community and in politics now for 10 plus years, and I can tell you that this industry has done more positive, more beneficial things in my community than probably any other industry that I can think of to date. And all along the way, every single time that we've gone to the industry in my community and asked them to do some best management practices or to do some additional things that would help mitigate, they have time and time again accommodated. But on the other hand, I would say that the industry has to get a little bit better at telling that story down at the local level to the folks in our communities, because those are the folks. You can talk to us, and I think all of us up here, we get it, and we will be your rally folks out there each and every day. But it's those common folks that I encounter at my monthly coffees with the mayor, or my dish and dessert, or just out on the street. Those are the conversations, because we do have right now extremists on both sides, but we have a lot of folks who are in the middle, and those are the folks in the middle that we have to make sure are getting the real story, the real accurate, true information, because those are the folks when they're in my chambers, because all the folks have anteed up and have gotten everybody in a tizzy because we're passing some oil and gas issue that evening. They're there to listen to what people are saying. And so if we only let the opposite voice talk, which we have plenty of those activists that make sure that they come out and they're in the chambers to express those, their thoughts we have to make sure we have the other side there that is telling the real accurate information, because there is a lot of bad information out there. And so if there would be anything else that I would, I guess, ask for or think about is, I would think about how can we strengthen the industry and your message to the communities.
And I would just add on to that. That's good. We've all stepped up. We need all of you to step up. And we need the people that you employ to step up as well. And that doesn't just mean coming to council meetings or commission hearings or going to the COGCC. It means when you're having that street block party, you should tell all your neighbors what you do and be proud of it. I mean, this isn't something that they need to hide. This is an emotional kind of warfare that's going on. And the folks who work in this industry need to be really darn proud of it, and they need to be telling people about it. It really needs to come, if you really, from neighborhood to neighborhood, from neighbor to neighbor kind of thing. I mean, my daughter lives in Johnstown. Her HOA hears from her all the time about the importance of oil and gas, because my son-in-law works in the industry. So, it's those types of things that need to start occurring. It's neighbor to neighbor, and that's why Proposition 112 went down as bad as it did, is because those energy-strong folks, and I know there are some in the room, and your employees were out there talking to their relatives, to their next-door neighbor. They were at the soccer park saying, in Fort Lupton, seriously, I was there when my grandsons were playing soccer, and I'm looking around, and everybody's playing and having a great time. You know what's right next to the soccer fields at the rec center in Fort Lupton? A whole bunch of tank batteries. Nobody's going, oh my God. They're all like watching their kids play soccer. But you just start pointing that out. It's like, look, did you know that's oil and gas right there? Most people don't even know it. So I think as we've all stepped up, you all need to step up too. We need your help.
Commissioner Puglisi.
Thank you. It's really interesting. A couple years ago, we had a rally in DeBeck, Colorado, where we were talking about the BLM canceling some oil and gas leases in the Thompson Divide. And when I walked up to this rally, I'm still a newer commissioner, still trying to figure out energy, and there were families lined up, moms with their kids. And it'd been a while since I've seen that type of reaction from the energy industry. You asked, what can energy workers do? And I think we definitely have heard some options. But when I walked into that COGCC hearing last week in Glenwood, there was in the corner a group of moms and their little kids, a whole bunch of little kids. And I walked in and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. And I went up and I just started talking to them, because I've got kids the same age as, and I said, well, so what are you here to talk about? And they said, oh, we support the industry. We want to make sure they understand that these babies get to eat because of the jobs provided by the energy industry. Mm-hmm. We are going to stand up. We are going to make sure that they hear our story, not just one side of the story. And I was so taken aback by the fact that I think the energy industry is stepping up. And what they told me was, you know what, my husband can't be here because he's at work right now, and he's at work in a different state. But I'm going to be here and I'm going to tell my story. And so I was so grateful when I was in that room to know that there were people who support what we're doing. And it's very important that they come and talk publicly to their elected officials and non-elected officials about the importance of the energy industry, these jobs, and our families. And so I think that's a message we really need to take back as well. So kudos to you all for stepping up.
Definitely. So I think 112 was kind of one of those things that brought everybody in industry together. I mean, every company who was a competitor came together to talk about why it was bad for our state. And I think it turned the conversation in a way that was so positive. We were out on every street corner, we were talking to our neighbors, we were throwing block parties, but I think that has to continue. We can't just stop because the election is over from last year. We have an election every single year. Local now is just as important as state level, and we've got to make sure we're staying engaged. So when you talk about specifically how to engage, coming to council meetings, coming to commission hearings, that's one way. I get a lot of emails from activists and industry people, actually, that are form emails that everybody copies and pastes, and they put their name in it. Sometimes they forget to change their name. But to me, that's not effective. So what are some great ways that people engage with you that really make you listen, and you can tell their story for them when they can't come to a meeting? Commissioner
You know, I think one of the things that we've seen that's been pretty effective are these telephone town halls where you can dial out, you can have, I mean, we've had them on a variety of topics and you can reach people by phone. A lot can be done in person, but I think if you have a focus on something like that, you have an opportunity to get the facts out, and it is, as others have said, there's so much misinformation, and I think everybody knows the faucet catching, catching on fire and everything, which is irrelevant to our area, but some of those visuals stick with people, and so we need to be able to put the truth out there and what industry is doing in so many areas to improve safety, and I think that's really important. But I just think some of those opportunities where you can engage a larger group of people by phone, you can ask questions, so you can do some polling about what people think. In our county, the very western part of our county is very populated. The eastern part is not, and that's where the drilling is. So most of the people on the western side of the county, their fear is that they're going to have a well drilled in on the playground at their kids' school, because that's what they're being told. And they look at maps where they have all of these approved locations, and it's just it's inaccurate. I don't know what to say other than that, and it's frustrating when that information goes out and people get scared and for no reason. And so I think out where most of the drilling is where the people are most engaged. I will say that for us, one of the things that's really helped us, we've approved 3 pipelines. And I think that really helps with transportation issues, some of the issues that we have with wear and tear on roads. I think pipelines, safety, there are a whole bunch of things that I think pipelines, if we can use those more effectively, and maybe there are ways that industry can help get more of those in place, I think that'd be a great thing to be able to do.
Commissioner Puglisi.
Thank you. If you asked me 5 years ago if I wanted to be on Facebook, I would have said, oh no, I don't want to be so out there. I don't want people to attack me. They can do it in public hearing, apparently that's okay. But on Facebook, it just felt a little different. So I did, in response to some information that I was trying to get out that the newspaper, ironically, wouldn't get out in a correct manner. And so I have found that social media has been an incredible way to communicate on issues. And so I'll post something, but what I love about it is I'll post something, right? I'm testifying against Senate Bill 181 for all of these reasons, and then I get a bunch of supporters, and then there's like one negative, and those supporters jump all over that person, and it's really—
Yeah, keep that up. That's really good.
I could use a few
Keep
of
doing
those.
that. More of that would be good.
Yeah, no, it's incredible because it's not that I have to defend myself, but my constituents who this legislation is going to affect, they're defending themselves. And for me, I think that that's incredible because I don't have to tell their stories, they can tell their own stories. And they're doing it in a way that everybody can see and it's public, but they don't have to show up in a meeting because they gotta, take kids to school and make dinner for tonight. And there's a lot of complications in having a family, and so that opportunity has really been incredible. So, like I said, it wouldn't have been my first choice, but it has been a saving grace as we talk about some of these issues.
Mayor.
A couple of things that I implemented when I became mayor of Windsor was some ways that I could get in front of folks without an agenda, but just one-on-one. And so I have a monthly coffee with the mayor. It's the 3rd Saturday of every month. It rotates to a different place. There's not an agenda. Sometimes there's a theme or a topic that we're talking about, but it's really an open space, and depending how many folks show up, whether it's 10 or 30, we sit around a table and we just have good conversation from all sides. And that doesn't necessarily mean that because I'm not always the expert on everything I'm talking about, but at least it offers up and antes up a conversation. And if there's additional follow-up or information on topics that have been brought up, then we try to bring that back and perhaps think about having that as a theme topic. Then I had some folks who don't like to wake up at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, so we started Dish and Dessert, which is an evening opportunity for kind of the same thing. But I actually was inspired just being here today, and I actually talked to somebody in one of the networking breaks in the industry and said, you know what, I've had this idea for a long time, but now I'm really inspired and think we really need to act upon it. And we should be having in all of our communities a conversation, a formal conversation that's gathered together by the industry called Oil and Gas Coexisting in Our Communities. But make sure we have the right folks at the table that are there to give the right information, to answer the questions that our citizens have. Because again, when we have all these folks that come together and when other folks come and raise these concerns, I need those folks in the room that can very easily squelch either whatever is, just a rumor or an untruth, and or relay true, accurate information. So hopefully that's something we can all enact upon after this event today.
And what was the question? What did you ask us? Like, what could they be doing?
What can they do? Yes.
So, I've got a really great idea. I think you should combine two ideas. I don't know if you've seen these where they do these pop-up parks. It's this new kind of thing that's going around in communities, neighborhoods, municipalities, especially in some of the older municipalities that don't really have a lot of parks. And they do what's called a pop-up park. And then I heard the other day it's in Hudson, they're doing this thing called Touch a Truck. And they invited like oil and gas industry, the fire trucks, the big trucks, the farm trucks, all of them to come in. And then they invite all the kids and the parents in their community to come in and touch the truck and find out what the truck does. So I think we should be putting together pop-up parks and touch the truck. And maybe we could do beer tents at the same time. And really get the people to come in and start understanding what equipment's used. I mean, it's a great opportunity when you start kind of, getting the youth and talking to them. These trucks are pretty cool. Here's what I do on my job. Here's what we do here kind of things. I mean, that's why kids all want to be firefighters all the time. They want to climb up the ladders and shoot water at things, So I think you should start doing things like that and have fun with it and get involved in it and get involved in the communities. Because in my county alone, there are 32 communities, towns or municipalities, either wholly or partially within the county. So y'all need to come out and start having fun at those. There's festivals. Every town has at least one festival a year, probably more like 4 or 5 a year. Go to it.
Exactly. I go to so many festivals myself, and I rarely see, and I'm in Adams County, I rarely see industry participation. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on in Adams County, so it'd be great to have them coming to these festivals. In fact, we have one coming up next week, if anyone's interested. But one of my frustrations is that we don't hear a lot from the industry until right when they have a project ready to go. And they do incredible outreach with the community 2 weeks before they have to do it. So is it better for them to engage throughout and not wait until the last minute to figure out who your elected officials are, figure out who in the community that you should be concerned about, or are those meetings effective, or do we do a blend of both? And I know Councilmember Sangren, you had something to add.
Well, actually, I'm just going to go for this question because I think, Barbara, you spoke about the pop-up everywhere. Just show up everywhere, yeah. So I think just like anybody, when you only show up when you need something, people tend not to listen to you anymore. So when you show up and people know who you are, they recognize your face, they know you're not extreme on one way or the other, they tend to listen. Now, we're never going to change the mind of people on the far one way or the other, but again, it's those middle people that really are looking and seeking for those conversations or be able to ask a question. So every festival, we have many, many festivals, but we have community events going on all the time, and it doesn't have to be a project for oil and gas. It can be anything. It can be, we have monthly walks with our neighbors. We have so many different ways to engage, especially if you live in that city. Get out there and walk with the community. Find out who your neighbors are, see what their questions are. You've already kind of taken them down a notch because they're not expecting you to be there. So when you pop up in places that they don't expect you, you're running a 5K with them, you're riding your bike to work day, they have no idea, oh, you're the council member, and they just start unloading their thoughts on you. So if you really want to know what they think, go into places where they don't expect to see you.
Well, and build relationships.
Yep.
So this is what we say in the emergency disaster world. The worst time to build a relationship is during the emergency. You should have been building that relationship ahead of time. So the worst time for y'all to ask people to come support you is when you actually need them. You should have been building that relationship all along. So, and you could also give out like ice cream cones during June because that's Dairy Month, and you know we're pretty proud of our dairy and
popsicles for the dairy intolerant. I mean,
No. Dairy Month is June. We hand out ice cream.
So we have just under 10 minutes left, and I know you guys have cards on your table, so be sure if you have questions to submit them, or I'm just going to keep talking. So either way works. And I think, and I don't know if there's someone from COGA that can help gather those questions up. But while they're working on that, let's get a little bit back in the weeds right now. And we went high, and now we need to get a little bit more into the details. So I know Weld County's rules are a little less restrictive than the state. So let's talk about what that means. How do you envision that working?
So actually, here's where things have not been reported accurately. Our rules are not less restrictive in the state. We essentially, and as many people in the industry know, we wanted to get a foundation in place and get something in place to start making the state react. So we essentially adopted the rules that were in place as of December 31st, 2018. We changed up a little bit on one of the setbacks and things of that nature, but basically it's what's going on at the COGCC. So our rules are the same. So that goes back to kind of that fake news stuff where people keep saying, oh, Weld County, they just want to be less restrictive. That's not true. You've heard all of us as elected officials, our job is to ensure the protection of the health, welfare, and safety of our constituents. No ifs, ands, or buts. It starts the minute you get elected and it ends the day you walk off and you're done.
And that's not
right?
new.
That is not new. That's always been there. That's our job. And if we're not, we're held accountable. You've heard it. I get caught at the soccer fields or the softball fields or the grocery store. I had to start going to the grocery store in Adams County because I wasn't getting my shopping done in Fort Lupton because people kept stopping me. But, we're always held accountable. So it's there. And, I just think we're accountable to the people, and it is about health, welfare, and safety for us.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on the thought process around Weld County's rules?
We love our rules.
Well, being a very close neighbor to Weld County, we're appreciative of Weld County and what they're doing right now because, as I said before, we're a smaller community, so we don't have that wherewithal. Weld County does, and we certainly are going to be looking to what they are proposing and how they're enacting things, and they're taking a lead in our community, and we're thankful for that.
Yeah. And I think the thing that people need to understand with local governments being empowered and doing local control and using our land use rules, we have land use in pretty much every area. Right. We have to work with state agencies all the time. We send referrals to the Department of Transportation, to the Department of Parks and Wildlife. Now we're sending them to the COGCC, and we send them to the Department of Health. Those are things that we've always done. In my county, we have 3 or 4 land use hearings a week. With regard to our 1041 regulations, and even our pipeline regulations that we put in place a few years ago, we try to make them administrative and make them efficient and streamlined as possible so that everyone can get through and that we're ensuring that compatibility on the surface. Because again, to us, it's just as important that agricultural keeps to get producing and that you're not messing up an irrigated farm, in a field someplace, and that everybody's working together and coexisting. So I think there's a lot that goes on, but everybody acts like land use is, new and what we're doing is new. It's not new. We have done it for years.
Probably the biggest part of the things that we do in both cities and counties, one of the most important things is land use. And so I think as a county with a lot less production, we really look to, and I really look to Weld County on the kinds of things that they are doing, and because they are at the forefront, it's a bigger part of their economy than it is in mine, yet it's as important in our community and in our county. So I think from that perspective, I really look to Weld County as to what you all are doing and what could work best in our county, considering our community and the different opinions and groups and where these wells are located. So I appreciate the work.
And Nancy and I, we had a conversation about a month or so ago about regulations and land use regulations. And even at that time, I don't know that I would say to every community, go out and do 1041 regulations. I mean, if you're only having a few wells, I don't know that it would necessarily be worth it for you. But I would tell every community to go out and take your land use authority and at least do the location and siting on the surface of oil and gas development. And here's why, and as I was explaining to Nancy.
That's right.
Once you go through that permitting process at the county, and we permit the oil rig, the development on the surface, and you go out and literally, because we've gone through court on this one, you go out and literally move a shovel of dirt, you have vested that property right. So if the state comes back and denies you a permit to drill, doesn't accommodate your right to get to your property, you have a clear takings issue. It's very clear. It's black and white. It's cut and dry. We've all been through these issues. And so that's the importance. When they said local governments, you have location and siting authority, I would recommend to every local government that has any oil and gas at all, whether it's 2 wells or 22,000 wells, to go out and exercise your land use authority and site them on the surface. Because it's our job to ensure that they are compatible with the neighborhood. So again, in my county, 500 feet doesn't always work. And we expressed this to Matt Lepore several times to the point where he was giving a lot of waivers on some of the setback measurements. Because if you're putting an oil and gas operation in the middle of a sprinkled field, that's just pretty much screwing up the agricultural production. There are places where it works, where 350 feet work or something less works. And we have the ability as local government officials exercising our land use authority to address that and to ensure that the surface uses are compatible with each other. That is our job. We are accountable to our constituents. That is not a state agency's job who is appointed by the governor. They don't get elected in my county. I don't know why they think they should get to make land use decisions in my county.
So we received actually a lot of questions, and we are almost out of time. So I'm going to use one as kind of the wrap up, and I'll walk us through starting with Commissioner Sharp. But for those of you who want to talk and engage more, we're having a meet and greet afterwards with a few of us, and I know Commissioner Kirkmeyer is having a discussion specifically around Weld County. So we can get all those questions answered, even if it's not while we're sitting on the stage. So Commissioner Sharp, let's start with you. What is the most important thing that you are doing that you think is most effective to educate your supporters about oil and gas? And then I'm going to throw in a second question as well. How important will local elections be in the future?
I think we use all of the, Rose was, Commissioner Puglisi was talking about social media. We do those kinds of things. We try to do a lot of outreach to our communities, the ones that might be impacted, not only by the drilling, but by traffic. And so I think we are good at reaching out, and sometimes I think one of the things that we don't do is keep it up as often. We may be more, something comes up, and often things will just go through and be approved, and nobody says anything, and then all of a sudden you have one that really gets a lot of people's attention, and so a lot of people weigh in. So I think for us, it's probably best to do a continual process of educating. I think a lot of the suggestions that were made here today about industry being very proactive, I think is great. I don't think until years ago, the industry, in my opinion, was very proactive until it started getting a lot of pushback. And realizing that that's where you all need to be, and to make sure that accurate information is getting out, and where to go to get that information. So I think just passing that along, we can do that, as I said, all social media, newsletters, lots of things online now. So I think we need to continue to do that on a regular basis.
Councilmember Sandgren.
I'll answer the local election question. So I think, especially for this industry, it's been mostly engaging at the state level. I actually ran at that state level several years ago, and the level of engagement that I had with a lot of you and a lot of different industries was much different than it was when I ran for council 2 years ago. And so I think now more than ever, it's really important to engage with your local officials in local elections. We have people running for council that are extremely against oil and gas industry, and you may not know that because you're not engaging at this level. And so it is a much smaller election. We see voters don't turn out as high in these local elections. They kind of forget even that it's a mayor's race that we have going on this year. Which is really important because that's basically, the next 4 years, and it's the leader of our city. So I think really getting into local elections, making sure you're engaging with those candidates, supporting those who are going to support you. I see several of them in the room here that are running this year. And then making sure that you don't forget the state passed this on to us now. And so we need your help in understanding how we can help you and support you. But also we need you to educate us on how we can talk to our constituents. So talk to us in a way that we can pass it along to somebody who's never heard anything about an oil rig, who's never been on a tour, who's never heard these industry words before. So help us so that we can help you, but really pay attention to who's running, because it's local elections. We make those decisions like that. We're not waiting, we're not spending our time usually until 2 in the morning like Aurora. So it's much quicker, and it changes the entire city very quickly.
Commissioner?
Thank you. I always feel so fortunate that I live in Mesa County because we don't encounter as much of the pushback that obviously we've heard today from some of your counties. So communicating with our constituents has been very easy, right? The people who love us tell us they love us, and the people who hate us tell us they hate us, and it's really that black and white. So I think continuing communication is really important. For me, it's been really, as we were talking about this Jordan Cove project, we've now started a coalition of states, so Wyoming and Utah and the Ute Indians, to work with us on marketing our natural gas resources. I don't know how many people in this room knew about it, but I'm starting to get more opportunities to talk about that and how collectively we can help on environmental issues, on health, safety, and welfare issues. So I think continuing to have those conversations on a bigger level, like this is bigger than us. We are part of Western states that have an abundance of resources. So being able to communicate that to our constituents and how we can have an effect on our global environment and our global economy, I think is really important. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to start having more of those conversations, especially in places outside of the Western Slope. So thank you for this opportunity because I got to do that. But I agree with you. I spend probably a good amount of time recruiting local candidates to run for office because I think it is that important that we put the right business-friendly people on energy, agriculture, on all of the things that we do, putting those right people in those places. And I know we're out of time, so I'm going to stop. But I think it's very important that we engage the industry on helping us to find the right candidates to make the right decisions in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Well, I think being at the forefront and being proactive is always better than being reactive. So one of the things that I implemented, because as soon as Senate Bill 181 passed, we had a couple board members who wanted to see some immediate action. So instead of taking and doing immediate action, I started to create some work sessions that involve different folks from the industry to come in to start having conversation with us to tell us what they already maybe are implementing or are doing in order to make some improvements, because I don't want to do anything unnecessarily or prematurely or unnecessarily if the industry itself is already taking care of some of these issues on their own, and or we don't want to jump too far ahead of what the COCGG, or you know what I mean. That's about what they're going to come up with in all the rulemaking anyway. They're the experts. They're going to know bigger and better and more. And so I certainly don't want to spend a lot of wasted time and energy on stuff when we've got the right folks around the tables in the other places that are going to be coming back to us and tell us what they've come up with. Now, will we agree with that or not? I don't know, but at least they are the experts in the industry. As far as local elections, I think they are They are keenly and hugely, I would agree with all of my fellow panelists to date, they are very important, and they're going to become even more important as we continue to move forward, because what we're doing right now is, especially like where I am at, we're not only fighting for the state that we all know and love, but we're fighting for the county and what we love and what we want to preserve up there in Weld County. And so it is imperative, I think, to really become active and involved. And if you can, reach out to those folks that you know that might be good possible candidates, because that's where it does start, is at the local level.
Commissioner.
Great, I'll start with the local election part first. It's just not local elections, it's every election, whether it's the fire district, the school district, whether it's a Senate race, a House race, a gubernatorial race, local government, county commissioner, city municipal race. Get engaged early, build that relationship, know who they are. You want them to call you when they need to know the information. They have a question about oil and gas, you want them to know that you're their friend and they're going to call you. So get engaged early. And that means get engaged in primaries as well. Don't miss the boat because you think, oh, I don't want to tick someone off. I got news for you. While you're not trying to tick someone off, you just probably got somebody elected that doesn't know your industry, doesn't know you, and doesn't care about you. So get engaged early. With regard to what we're doing to basically let people know about the industry, we're doing all the same things everyone else is doing. We're doing the webpage, we're doing the Facebook post, we're doing all that stuff. We're actually also going a little bit farther, and we're developing a campaign to let people know how healthy we are in Weld County and what a great county we are. So not just the people in Weld County either, but throughout the state. And then another project that I'm working on, I'm going to present to the CCI board tomorrow because I'm on the CCI board, is about our state and about how do we get back our state. You know, we are all Colorado. We are all not people who just smoke pot, wear Birkenstocks, and go hiking in the mountains. You know what? I don't even ski. Sorry, it's just too expensive, and I just got way too much work to do. But you know what? Our Colorado is our Colorado. And as counties, I think we're kind of that heartbeat of the state. I think we need to circle the wagons and start saying, it's about our state. It's about getting our state back. And because believe it or not, folks, it's not all about you. It's not just about your industry. It is right now about our state. It's about our Colorado and ensuring that we get our Colorado back to the way we were and then grow from there.
Great. Ladies, you have been absolutely amazing today. Thank you all so much for participating. Let's give them a giant round of applause, please.